Interdenominational Prayer Against Corruption, held at Kororo in August 2022. The First Lady, Honorable Janet Katam Seven, most of us saw her give her speech asking the corrupt officials and citizens to repent and change their ways of life, since their deeds continue to frustrate the service delivery and hurt many innocent Ugandans. And this is where we come from as ground zero, and we pick this. Corruption is watering down every achievement, every gain that Uganda has gained. Number one, the corrupt officials are not reducing, but are increasing day by day. Number two, no one has come up publicly or privately to repent and confess their sins. Number three, no one is willing to change their ways of life. Number four, this keeps frustrating and suffocating the service delivery. Number five, the end of the day, innocent Ugandans get hurt, tired, poorer, and frustrated. When you build a house deep in your village or here in Kampala, society will know that you are corrupt. When you develop a good berry, a stomach, they call it a stomach of corruption. When you take your children to good schools, they will say, of course, he's working with the government. Until when are we going to handle such statements? Are we going to start living to the expectations of the people of Uganda that we have served as government? Cancer kills, I told you, cancer kills about 21,000, is it per year? But how many people are being killed by corruption? To me, I think corruption kills Ugandans more than the 6 killer diseases that we knew in the past before the immunizations came. More than all the diseases combined together, AIDS, cancer, accidents, because if you have to look at the roads accidents, the accidents that take place on the roads, it's because some contractor somewhere ate the money. If you have to see the people that die in the hospitals, it's because someone took the money that was meant to facilitate the hospital or for the medicines. Many people keep dying because of this vice corruption. I've been joined by a special team of guests that are going to digest this and give the hope to the country that we must celebrate independence in good faith and with open hands and hearts, rejoicing because they are reducing this cancer to ground zero as our program. I've been joined by Patricia Achani Ochiria, is the Deputy Inspector General of Government. You're most welcome, Madam.
Thank you very much, Amon, and good morning, listeners.
Most welcome and good morning to you. We have Maron Agaba, is the Executive Director and Corruption Coalition Uganda. Most welcome to UBC Ground Zero.
Thank you, Amon. Good morning to our listeners.
A privilege and honor to have you, sir. We also have Ofono Charles, Executive Chairman, Foundation for Rural Housing. Most welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm humbled to be on Ground Zero.
Great. We also have Selwaji Habibu, is the member from Equal Opportunities Commission. Most welcome.
Thank you, Amon.
With the team that I've just introduced to you, you can see and tell that I have a strong team that is going to discuss this interesting topic and give you the hopes and tell you whether we are losing the battle or we are still on the track. Starting with you, Patricia Chan, you can tell us what you do as the Inspector General of Government and what is about the IGG, the office that was entrusted with the mandate to fight this to the last point. Most welcome, sir. Most welcome, madam. What is that about IGG? What do you do, and what is your position?
Thank you very much, Amon. I am Patricia Chano Kiria, the Deputy Inspector General of Government of Uganda. About the IG, I'll begin with the background information. The IG was established in 1986 after the NRM government came to power. And as we reflect at celebrating Uganda at 60, you realize that the National Resistance Council of the National Resistance Movement, together with the high command and senior officers under the chairmanship of His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, came up with a 10-point program. And the 10-point program was basically a political program that would form a basis for a national coalition of political and social forces that would work a new and better future for this country, Uganda. This was referred to as the 10-point program, and specifically looking at point number 7, it was on elimination of corruption and misuse of power. This was looked at as an answer to the problems it found upon assumption of power at that time. And the problems included poverty, rampant corruption in the country, a bloated and highly inefficient bureaucracy, heavy debt burden, insecurity, lack of physical discipline, and a fast-rising population. So when you look at the IG, it was a directorate. It was started as a directorate, a department under office of the president, with a mandate which had basically 2 issues to deal with: the protection and promotion of human rights and the elimination of corruption and abuse of office. So in the 1995 Constitution, upon the promulgation of that Constitution, there are some changes that were instituted in splitting this mandate. And so we see Uganda Human Rights Commission being established and assigned the duties of the protection and promotion of human rights. So when you look at our mandate as the Inspectorate of Government, it is derived from the Constitution and enabled by the Inspectorate of Government Act, which was passed in 2002. And this mandate is provided under Article 225 and Section 8 of the IG Act. And this mandate is basically to promote and foster strict adherence to the rule of law and principles of natural justice in the administration of public resources, and promotion of good governance in public offices, stimulation of public awareness about the values of good governance and constitutionalism, and to foster the elimination of corruption, abuse of authority, and abuse of office, among others. Now, when you look at corruption, you have said it's like a cancer. Corruption is actually related to this COVID-19 we just had. Why? Because COVID-19 has the ability of squeezing life out of a nation, and corruption also does have the same. In terms of characteristics, COVID-19 basically mutated from Omicron, Delta, and several others, and corruption also does the same. It mutates. If you look at the Prevention of Corruption Act of the 1970s, it looked at corruption from the perception of bribery only. But today, there are several acts of corruption which are embedded in the Anti-Corruption Act: bribery, abuse of office, and so on and so on. Illicit enrichment, money laundering, and several other offenses which are in the corruption, on the prevention of corruption, in the Anti-Corruption Act of 2009. Now again, corruption begins with the violation of laws, rules, and regulations. It's important to note that corruption basically is a product of disregard to the rule of law. At the IG, we have instituted a number of mechanisms to deal with corruption. First of all, the new team in the inspectorate, we are making 1 year. We have made 1 year this month, ever since we came into office. And when you look at our functions, we are basically supervising the enforcement of the Leadership Code Act. We're investigating acts of corruption. We're having the prosecution role. We are basically doing awareness, public awareness about values and constitutionalism. And we have basically made some progress. So I wouldn't agree with you when you say we're losing the fight against corruption, because corruption is a war not just for the Inspectorate of Government, but it's everybody's war. At the end of the day, the victim of corruption is that ordinary citizen out there who goes to the hospital and doesn't find drugs and they're all stolen away. So what we are saying as the IG is that everybody else should rally behind us to fight this war against corruption. We need to empower the citizens to come out to name and shame. And indeed, we have done a lot along these lines of empowering the citizens, creating awareness among them, disseminating the anti-corruption laws and policies to them, because as a country, we have a robust institutional and legal framework to fight corruption. But what we are seeing is that there is disregard for these laws, for the rule of law in this country. And therefore, what we need to do mostly is to concentrate on the mindset change of the citizens out there, so that everybody knows what corruption is and what they can do to contribute to the fight against corruption. So what we are saying is that everybody must join the battle against corruption, and together as a country we will be able to wipe corruption and bring it down to minimum levels, or completely clear it out. That is basically what I have to say, Amon, for purposes of the introduction. Thank you.
Interesting. Agaba, you have just heard from the IGG. Anti-corruption coalition. What is that about, and what is your position, and what do you do? Do you do different from the IGG?
Thank you very much. Anti-Corruption Coalition Uganda is a non-government organization. We are an NGO, and as the name suggests, we are a coalition. We bring together several actors that are fighting corruption, and mostly non-state. We have our partners at the regional level, in the different regions, fighting corruption. We have partners at the national level, NGOs working at the national level, and we also have individuals that are committed to the cause that we work with. We are founded in 1999, so we have been here for quite some time. In terms of what we do, one, of course, for us, we don't do prosecution and arresting and that is mandated to the IG and other institutions, but we raise civic awareness. We educate the public, first of all, on the problem that corruption is, because if you are to effectively fight corruption, then the citizens have to be involved, because usually they have also been involved in the corruption, but also they are the people affected in most cases by the corruption. When you look at corruption, for instance, it affects the most vulnerable people. When you go to the health facilities, it is mostly our mothers and the children who are using those services. When you go to schools, it's the children. So when you have corruption in those sectors, it affects the most vulnerable of society. So it is important. We found it important to bring them on board. Issue number 2 is that we also do research and on the problem of corruption, and then share the findings with other agencies of government. Sometimes we do investigation, but for purposes of educating the public, and then we also do trainings and capacity building for the different actors. I wanted to share a little bit briefly in terms of the problem of corruption, just give some kind of background and perspective. There is an interesting study that was actually done by the Inspectorate of Government that show that we lose 9.14 trillion annually to corruption. 9 trillion. And the study goes ahead to say that was equivalent to 40% of the local collection. I think that is in the financial 1920. 9.1 trillion. And this is a 2020 report. By now, I think we are around 11 trillion. But there are also several studies. There is a study done by the Global Financial Integrity that showed that we lose around a trillion annually to corruption, and that is around 2017. So these figures have increased by now. But also there is the Corruption Perception Index that is done annually by Transparency International, and it ranks countries based on several other indices. And for 2021, Uganda was ranked in the 144th position out of 180 countries. So we are performing, I think, better than 36 countries with a score of 27%. So you can just imagine, if it is you are in school, or your child in school, and the score is 27%, what kind of grade they would be in terms of fighting corruption. And also when it comes down to the region that we are in, for purposes of comparison, in the East African region, you find that Uganda is basically doing better than countries like Burundi and South Sudan, which have basically been hard challenges. So it's not a good league that we should be in. So in my own assessment is that where we have reached with regard to this problem of corruption, we are losing. And if we don't put in more effort, or if God doesn't intervene, we are likely to lose this battle of corruption, because we have reached a level where corruption has permeated all sectors of society. Someone recently asked a very interesting question, that where is the center of morality in this country? Where is that one place where you can go to and you can learn about morality in this country? And actually nobody could give a comprehensive answer to that question. So it shows that corruption has now permeated all sectors of society, and unless serious intervention is taken, then we are in for very big trouble. Thank you,
Most welcome, and thank you for that detailed introduction about what you do in anti-corruption coalition. Mzee Fono.
My name.
Are you part of the battle as rural housing? What did you do, and how far have you gone with the fight? Or you left it for the people of IGG and the Agabas of Anti-Corruption Coalition?
Foundation for Rural Housing is an NGO. Whatever happens in government has a lot of implications, on what we do. But basically, what we are doing for now, we are promoting communities into housing cooperative societies, and we also engaged on legislative advocacy on matters of policy, matters of law relating to the sector. When I was invited to this discussion, Uganda at 60, a lot of things came to my mind. Uganda at 60, we've lost the Queen of England. There we pay our condolences to the royal family and the British people. Uganda at 60, in Uganda, retirement is done at 60. It tempts to ring to my mind, as Ugandans retire at 60, our Ugandans retiring the fight against corruption. That's a big question that we are privileged to have a big fighter in the House in the name of the Deputy Inspector General of Government. Now, my own insight on what I know as corruption, I attempt to define. I may not be scholarly, but for me I view corruption as any act contrary to the legal expectation or societal expectation of a person in the public or the private sector in the course of the execution of what he is tasked to do. Now, first of all, I also must appreciate the efforts the government of the Republic of Uganda has done by setting up the infrastructure that we require to have in place in fighting against corruption. But there is one thing that I want to put in this perspective. It may be a little historical, but probably in this historical perspective, the people at the center of the fight of corruption may have to ask ourselves, what did we do wrongly, probably, and how can we do it now in the fight against corruption? If you look at Uganda's history, in relation to the structural adjustment program, that was in the early 90s, we saw retrenchment, we saw privatization. There are a lot of issues related to corruption that came after we were advised or directed to go privatization and restructure our human resource. There are very many people in the civil service who are unexpectedly stopped from work. Many teachers died, many health workers died, and because they had been retrenched, there was no preparation to settle people after formal employment. The people who took up offices later with the experience of job insecurity said the moment somebody places his hand on the national resources, he or she ensured that he goes with something in the event of the same. This is the history of what I'm convinced started the heart of corruption. Now, related to retrenchment, we are looking at the issue of the minimum wage. The President of the Republic of Uganda, I think, is strongly opposed to the minimum wage. And he has said severally that the presence of minimum wage will have a lot of effect on the environment of investment. Now, the absence of job security and facilitation as required of a worker brings a lot of temptation to the people. Now, it takes a simple stride to have environment of investment within a protected environment of resources, human resources, I mean. This one takes planning and the goodwill of the people in charge, the duty bearers. What does it take to have these things in place? Like I said earlier, it's a matter of the goodwill. Now, the IGG has done a lot of efforts in the fight against corruption. Not very long ago, I will need to be educated. The President of the Republic of Uganda had an opinion to the IGG. I am attempted to remember that he said, see, those ones who take our money but invest here, you need to cautiously go slow on them. That spirit is not any different from somebody attempting to shoot a foot using a gun at his own hand. Now, if the President of the Republic of Uganda makes a statement of that nature, he has appointed you to handle a task, and he is limiting you on how to handle that task. What do you do? I'm wondering whether I didn't understand the position of the President. Maybe at a certain point, he may have to give us a clear position of why the Inspectorate of Government should go slow on the people who steal government resources and invest here. I fail to understand that. And that one pours a lot of cold water onto the efforts of government to fight corruption. Now, if you look at development programs, for example, the recent development program that was launched by the President, the parish development model, it is shrouded by events of corruption. I see people being carried like goats into the slaughterhouses in the course of arrest. Now, I'm attempted to believe the author of this program had a spirit, had a national spirit, the goodwill. I'm attempted to think that he could have held his pen and into his mouth as the knowledge flew from his brain onto his desk. The moment this knowledge left his desk to various stakeholders, and it involved a lot of money, the different spirits of the people of Uganda shrouded the parish development model. You see what's happening. What needs to be done? Earlier on, the Deputy Inspector General indicated that there is the need for the software, community sensitization and involvement in these things. What does parish development model have in place as a risk management strategy to overcome this? Do they have it anyway? These are issues that we must have in place.
All right.
To have the fight successful.
All right. I'll come back to you, Mzee Fono, for what we need to do as a country and all the other stakeholders. Allow me bring in Habibu, a member of Equal Opportunities. Are we really equal anyway? Habibu?
Thank you, Amma.
My name is Seruwaji Habib, a member of the Equal Opportunities Commission. To give a little background about the Commission, the Equal Opportunities Commission is a constitutional body that was established by Article 32, 3 and 4 of the 1995 Constitution of Uganda, and it was operationalized by the Equal Opportunities Act, that is 2007. The Equal Opportunities is mandated to eliminate discrimination and inequalities within all state and non-state institutions against any individual or groups of persons undertaking affirmative actions in favor of groups marginalized for the purposes of redressing the imbalances that exist against them. Therefore, when we look at corruption, the most affected group of people are the vulnerable people. Wherever people target to take government resources, for instance, my colleagues just talked about the PDM. These are vulnerable people that corruption normally targets. And we are there to protect these people as an institution. Even after getting independence way back in 1962, Ugandans continued to live under conditions characterized with sectarianism, insecurity, high levels of poverty, inequitable and poor service delivery, low production levels, marginalization and discrimination, stigmatization, property grabbing, enormous killings, and lack of democracy, among others. So following the coming of the new government, that was 1986, so the 10-point program inclined on the Equal Opportunities Commission, principles, was operationalized. So when we are discussing corruption, I think there is, and I believe there is a strong government will to wipe out corruption. And what do we need to do in order to celebrate our 60 years of independence and say that, yes, we are on the right course? It is us, the individuals, it is the non-government actors, just like these NGOs. We have to have checks and balances so that together we can fight this vice out of our country. So, as Equal Opportunities Commission, we really have checks and balances. We have a tribunal. We have a tribunal that looks at cases of discrimination, cases of marginalization, cases of disparities. And even the commission was the one that actually authored a report in 2016 for the salary disparities in government, because we want to see that there is equality amongst Ugandans. So when we look at Uganda, we have a remarkably strong anti-corruption legal and institutional framework, which would ideally promote good governance, transparency, accountability, and transformative public service delivery to spur national development. So many interventions for promoting good governance, ethics, integrity, accountability, and fighting corruption in both public and private sectors have been formulated. And some of these have been implemented. So as EOC, we are there to protect the marginalized and the vulnerable groups of people. So as a country, we have not lost hope in fighting the vice of corruption. Thank you.
I am glad that you have not lost hope, and you have confirmed and said it on the national and public broadcaster, and I believe that every Ugandan should have the same hope. Uganda at 60, dealing with the cancer of corruption. In the studios of UBC, I have Dr. Patricia Achan Ochiria is the Deputy Inspector General of Government. Maro Nagawa is the Executive Director and Corruption Coalition Uganda. Ofono Charles is the Executive Chairman, Foundation for Rural Housing. Selwaji Habibu is a member from Equal Opportunities. This is UBC Ground Zero. We are always live on YouTube, live on Butebo Radio, live on West Nile Radio, Magic 100 FM, and UBC Red. Ampaire Amon Mutega is my name, and I'm glad that we are tackling this corruption, which most of our members and listeners, Juma, Martin from Yenga, Okia from Lira, you have always had the concerns about this, and I'm glad that we have the guests that you've been all yearning to talk to about this issue. You will join me on 7765111 and you raise your issues, concerns or ideas on what you think Uganda needs to do in order to fight this vice, to fight this cancer, to fight this problem until all of us feel proud in the country of Uganda. Madam IGG, of recent, there was a report which I believe you conducted with other stakeholders, and you said the 20 trillion against to what Agawa says 9.1 trillion that we lose as a country. Is that true that we lose 20 million trillion annually into corruption?
Thank you very much, Amon. We did conduct a study as the Inspectorate of Government into the cause of corruption in the country. And there are revelations from that report that the country loses approximately 10 trillion in overt corruption and 10 trillion in covert corruption.
That makes 20?
Yes, that makes 20. Overt corruption is through the cases we do, and then when you look at the cost of corruption, it basically has very, very bad implications. But when you look at where we started from as a country, as the Inspectorate of Government, through our reports, when you look at them, you realize that when we started earlier in the 2000s, in the 90s, we were receiving very few cases, very few compared to what we have today. We started with in 2002, we had about 1,400 cases. Today, we have about 6,000 cases we are doing. In terms of prosecution, we have got 39 cases prosecuted. We have got the conviction rates increasing amidst the challenges we have identified. And in those reports, we have made recommendations to Parliament to take. For instance, if you look at the Anti-Corruption Court today, it came out as a result of the recommendations from our reports to Parliament. So you realize that today, we even have the Leadership Code Tribunal, which despite of its infancy, has started handling and disposing of matters of breaches of the code. So the Leadership Code Tribunal was established as a result of the amendment of the Leadership Code Act, which basically is part of the improvements. So when you look at the general trends today, going back to that report, the report saying we're losing approximately 10 trillion annually in corruption, it has got very, very serious implications. Now, if we are to improve on that, as the Inspectorate of Government today, when you look at us in terms of asset recovery, we are recovering quite an amount of money. The IG has put a lot of efforts to ensure that monies and properties illicitly obtained are recovered, confiscated by legal means, and put back in the government coffers. In the last 2 months of 2022, July and August, our recovery was 1.2 billion. The 3 months, January to May, we stood at 5.4 billion. For this year alone, our recoveries are now 9.8 billion. So when you look at our high-profile cases we are doing at the moment, like for instance, the Maif alone case is going to make us recover 9 billion. The UBOS case, we are recovering 977 million. Recovered assets in the directorate, really, in the Inspectorate of Government, has really improved in terms of some of those high-profile cases we are doing. We have a high recovery rate at the moment, and if in 2 months we have 1.2 billion, and this all goes to the consolidated fund to improve on government operations. Even in monitoring of government programs, the projects, and many others, a lot of corruption and loss of public funds is basically prevented. And certain losses are stopped before even they occur. Others are curbed midway, and we are able to stop and through our detection and quickly fix some of these problems. So we are seeing increased and better enforcement even of the Leadership Code Act, and we now have a tribunal, like I have already said, and although it's at its infancy, we have seen some of the achievements they have made. Recently, the chairperson, Dr. Roslyn Karugonjo, was launching its strategic plan, and we see the direction they are taking. So a lot of corruption normally occurs in abuse of office, which manifests in various forms such as absenteeism, late coming, abuse of public property, entrusted to officers to do their work. So that is basically how corruption manifests itself. And we believe that our rating for this year for the Corruption Perception Index, which Agaba was talking about, will significantly improve from that 26 to probably 36 or even more, because we see progress. And that is the reason why I strongly say that we are not losing the fight of corruption in this country, because we have a population that has become very aware and everybody is making noise about it. In terms of perception index, people are more informed. And then there is a deliberate effort government has put in fighting corruption. We have been financed, we have been empowered, we have been entrusted with responsibility to deal with this task. So when my friend Ofono says the lifestyle audit, the president said we should go slow in handling dealing with the lifestyle audit because people will run away with the proceeds of corruption and invest in other countries. We have medicine for that. We have got the mutual legal assistance legislations. We have got bilateral agreements with our neighboring countries. We have got the regional, sub-regional approaches to dealing with corruption, even international, where we have got the International Anti-Corruption Agencies and the African Association of Anti-Corruption Agencies and the East African Association of Anti-Corruption Agencies, where we partner, we can get information from different countries as and when we need. And if anybody has run away with our resources through our partnership and mutual legal assistance, we can get that property back in the country. So in terms of progress, I think as a country we are doing very, very well, and we are even capable of doing better. Why do I say so? We see a trend in terms of the cases, in terms of the convictions, in terms of asset recoveries that we are making. And when you look at where we are going, where are we and where are we going? In terms of our NDP3, even as we reflect on the Uganda at 60, our target 2024-2025 under security and good governance, one of the results is to improve the Corruption Perception Index, and which I have said we are capable of taking it from 26 to 35 or even above if we work together to change the mindset of Ugandans. If we improve on the institutional performance, then a lot can be done to improve this country. In terms of the cost of corruption, again, to attain the middle income status in this country, there should be improved performances. If we say we are losing 10 trillion in overt and covert corruption, we want to save this money through asset recovery so that it is injected back into the economy to improve efficiency and effective service delivery. We want increased employment. We want more quality service in health and education. We want a motivated public service. And we believe that this will take Uganda to the middle income status, meaning that the gross national income will be between 1026 to $3,955 per year. This is the total money earned by all Ugandans businessmen in a country in a year. This is the gross national income. So Uganda, we have the potential to improve the economy to the middle income status if we work together to recover this money and prevent the loss. If the report is saying we are losing 10 trillion, and that has got a very big implication on the budget, if the Inspectorate of Government is supported together with other agencies like the Equal Opportunities Commission, and we work together with our civil society partners and strategic alliances, we are able to save the country from losing the battle against corruption. And that's the reason why I say we are not losing the battle in fighting corruption, because we see some positive trends, we see some positive achievements, and then we also see in our 1 year, we are now remaining with 3 years in our Chisanja. But we are saying, let us fight this corruption and have impact, so that when we complete our Chisanja in the next 3 years, there is a change in mindset, and Ugandans have embraced the fight against corruption. We are looking at community monitoring groups, empowering the community to monitor government projects at the grassroots levels. We are looking at equipping the youth through the youth councils and youth programs. We want the youth to join the battle against corruption, because they are the future leaders. And how are we doing this? We're working with institutions of learning, so that the youth get to know about the danger of corruption and how they can contribute to dealing with corruption. And like I had said earlier on, and my colleagues have said, the citizens at the end of the day are the victims of corruption, and would like them to participate in the fight against corruption. Because at the end of the day, if we are to save or recover this 10 trillion we're talking about, lost in covert corruption, and 10 trillion lost in overt corruption, then this money can be injected in government programs. Every student can be able to own a laptop purchased by government. This parish development model we are talking about will just be an enhanced approach to helping improve the poverty levels and improve and empower the citizens and move the country to middle income status. This performance we have in the Corruption Perception Index will definitely be improved as well. So Amon, what I'm saying as I conclude, in order to improve our Corruption Perception Index, it is very important that we rally all the citizens to join this war against corruption, so that everything can improve. We need to improve enforcement as well. So in terms of prosecution, in terms of investigations, which I have talked about, we have seen progress. In terms of asset recovery, and this money, by the way, goes back to the consolidated fund. We have also come from very far, and we are doing a lot. And to achieve the middle income status, I believe that we need a holistic approach where we all join our hands together and say, this is our country, we are patriotic, and we want to see a fundamental change in this country, especially in fighting corruption. And I believe we'll go a long way. The examples my friend Ofondo was giving, the parish development model, we have seen impact already. Recently, I wrote a letter, I think 2 weeks ago, to all accounting officers, and I told them I would like to see a breakdown of what you have received so far, and how many circles have got it, and how much you have spent out in terms of our PDM monies. And I have seen very good feedback coming up. The cows are now alert. Some of them are now leading the drive against corruption and exposing whatever is happening.
And so many are also in prison.
Yes, some are going to prison, and others are yet to go. We are using the stick and carrot approach, where we take the carrot, I meet the district officials together with my colleagues, tell them about the strategy, ask them about the new innovative approaches they have, and then later on we go with the stick if we have identified gaps and red flags in those areas. So together we need to work together in order to improve the image, and as we move to Uganda at 60, we should really celebrate that we are making progress. Although in terms of challenges, we still have lots of challenges, which I think we will be discussing along the discussion.
All right, interesting. Mzee Fono, we've just heard from the IGG that their efforts they are increasing every day, and they are encouraging Ugandans also to join the battle. On recovery, the IGG says they are recovering about 9.8 billion, if I got that well, but compared to the 20 trillion, to me, with my simple calculation, that is not even a quarter, not even 1%. Ofono, where are we heading? If they are saying that 1.8, just 1%, is the best they have done, and that is how far they have gone. When shall we reach not even 50, but at least 10%? I mean, 10% for the fine.
Before Fono comes in, that 9 billion is just one case, the Maif case, and there are several other cases.
Altogether, what could be the estimate, Madam IGG?
Altogether, when you add up 9 billion from Maif, 700 something from UBOS, and others were recovering, both in Mukene and Mputa. It
We'll
is
get-
quite a lot because
Like,
one
like 20 billion.
It has been around 20.
Like 20 billion.
Yes, it is something which goes back to the consolidated fund.
Ah.
And if we added up, if we are empowered more, we're even able to recover much more. Have you looked at what people are taking back from what they had stolen from the parish development model? It is quite a hefty amount. So if we work together, I believe we can even recover more. Over to you, Mr. Ofono. Thank you.
Oh, fun.
Yes, Comrade Hammond.
Ah.
You see,
The best we have achieved is 20 billion.
the fight against corruption, one is to save the national resources.
True that.
But let me give you this perspective.
Please.
And I beg to be corrected if I'm going to focus my submissions on the sayings of the President of the Republic of Uganda. At one point he said he is not God. He meant that he doesn't say everywhere. So there are chances of some things happening. Honestly, I sympathize with him and I accept that statement. Now, the President sets up a team. He is the chief fighter against corruption for this matter. He sets up a team to fight corruption, the IGG. Now, I just want to be educated on the relevance of creation of parallel institutions. And what does this one mean? It means national resources that my sister could have saved is plowed back into a parallel institution. Does that question make a meaning? I need to be educated since we are here with the focal person. So that one to me is a challenge in the fight against corruption, because I see situations of collision between or among the anti-corruption fighters.
Okay.
So
Do you think in any way this nags the fight?
You see, it takes a statement from the president to correct these things. And this should be one of the ways. You see, as my sister Patricia makes this submission on the efforts so far achieved, I am attempted to focus my submission on the strategies of the government and the stakeholders undertaking to fight this menace. Now, if you look at other manifestations of corruption, URA sometimes sets a target of revenue collection. The moment you see, here Uganda Revenue Authority telling you that you see will fail to meet the target, just know that there is a problem. How does the problem come? The people of Uganda who are taxpayers, one, have learned to evade tax. That's corruption in itself. The people of Uganda who are taxpayers have learned to avoid tax. The staff of URA, I am attempted to think, are involved in connivance, because there are situations where I have engaged an auditor, and there is indication that at one point a URA staff, they can flash you with a big sum of money to pay as taxes, but you see, and then it's the discussion of with me, if you do like this, we can slash this
the way I
into this.
can handle and help you.
Yes,
With
that
that way.
connivance. These are areas of manifestation. So the moment you hear such statements, I would prompt my sister Patricia to engage. Why is this happening?
All right. Agaba, I would agree with Mzee Ofono. The coalition or the coalition between the parties, the institutions that have been established to fight, but when they are going to be fighting themselves, is this in any way going to deny us the chance to fight this vice? How come the commissions that they're established either by the parliament or the president tend to do more good works than the IGG, which is mandated to do that? If you look at the State House Anti-Corruption Coalition is doing much better. If you have to look at COSESE from Parliament is doing much better. Why is the problem? Are we in any way nagging the fight or the mandate of the IGG, which is put in the national constitution?
You are allow me, I'll talk about that, but also later talk about some of the challenges. First of all, I think the IGG, the new team, is doing a commendable job, and we need to support them despite the challenges that they are facing. The problem of corruption in this country is very big. No single institution right now can say that they can take away corruption. It's a very big problem. And we welcome the recoveries that they are doing. I think probably what other institutions, just to give feedback to the Inspectorate of Government, what other institutions have been doing well is that Ugandans want to see that action is being taken. We are talking about sensitization. People know that there is corruption. They know that corruption is bad, but they go ahead to engage in corruption. Why? Because they have reached a level where they have been meant to believe that corruption can never go away. That's why someone will tell you that for me, corruption is good. Actually, opinion is changing. People think now corruption is good because they will tell you if a traffic officer stops you, instead of paying a fine of 100,000, you can give them 5,000 and you go. And those are the opinions. The attitudes have completely changed in favor of corruption. Why? It's because at some level, people want to see action being taken by the agencies, and when they report, they expect action to be taken. So when they report to the Inspectorate of Government and they don't receive feedback, much as the Inspectorate of Government is doing work, and tomorrow they report to the State House Anti-Corruption Unit and they see what's happening, they will say State House is doing well. And indeed, from feedback we get, you have been doing studies, opinion shows that people rank high. For instance, the State House Anti-Corruption Unit, because of the kind of engagement. So I think that the Inspectorate of Government should probably invest more, one, in terms of awareness of the work we are doing, and also giving feedback to people who report. Because if you report a case and the feedback, you're not receiving it, then tomorrow you don't report. The other aspect, of course, is also the aspect of protection of people who report cases. I think I've been receiving complaints that sometimes when they report to the Inspectorate of Government, their identities are released, and as you know, the corrupt in this country are powerful. They face reprisals, so there is that kind of falling back. But Amon, that put aside, I want to talk briefly at some of the challenges, and the good thing is that you talked about the recoveries quite well. If you are losing 10 trillion and you are covering around 20-25 billion, that is less than 0.5% of the money we are losing. And if we are to be effective at fighting corruption in this country, asset recovery, because you see, corruption is a game of numbers. It's a game of figures. If a corrupt person figures out that in my entire career, if I work and retire, the maximum amount of money I can get is 300 million. But there is a chance of stealing 10 billion. In 1 week. I go to, in 1 week or whatever, and I go to prison for 5 years. I can come back and enjoy the money. So once we fail at getting back that motivation, once we fail at getting back the lost money, then we lose this war, because the motivation is still there. So that is one area that we need to improve. The second aspect I want to talk about, Madam Patricia has talked about the recoveries from Ministry of Agriculture, from the Bureau of Statistics and other agencies. That is quite commendable. But again, why do you recover the money and leave these people in offices? Some of them, somebody has accepted guilt. I have stolen. It is even the evidence, because they have accepted to pay back the money. Why do you leave them in public office? Because tomorrow they will do the same thing. So I think that is another gap that we probably need to look at. These people should not stay in offices. The other aspect I wanted to talk about was the whole aspect of cross-border kind of cooperation. We have been doing studies on that aspect, and we did some study to see how Uganda was doing in terms of enforcing the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. And one of the problems was actually in asset recovery across the border. The mutual legal assistance as envisaged in the Anti-Corruption Act amended in 2015 and the Anti-Money Laundering Act, it is not working. There are actually cases that have been lost because somebody committed a crime in Uganda, took the proceeds abroad, but because we don't have agreements between countries, those people end up not paying the money they have taken. Then the other issue that I wanted to talk about is that for countries that have really done quite well in fighting corruption, there have been 3 or 4 things that really stand out. And one is the whole aspect of leadership. That there has to be commitment all the way from leadership. And when I talk about leadership, yes, I begin at the presidency and then the other people in positions of leaders. Because there are people, when you go in institutions where there is that commitment at the top to fight corruption and to do service delivery, you will find that corruption has reduced. So not just looking at the top, but also if it is chairperson, LC5 or cow, or even in your home, by the way, corruption now has been at the home level. When that commitment is there to say no, you will find there are some changes. So leadership in fighting corruption is very important. But also too, we have these institutions. But are the institutions, do we have strong institutions, for instance, right now? When you look at an institution of parliament that has a role to do appropriation, that has a role of oversight, amongst other roles, are they doing their work quite well? We have heard of instances of members of parliament being bribed on top of their pay, huge pay, being bribed to do their work. So a person who is bribed by 40 million, 5 million, 29 million, do you expect them to do their oversight role, really? So the second aspect is the aspect of institutions. We have the institutions, but are they independent doing their mandate? Have they been empowered to do their mandate, despite what is put on paper? Then lastly, Amon, on that point, the other institution that is important in this fight against corruption is the institution of the judiciary. And by the way, the anti-corruption division of the High Court has been doing a quite commendable job. When you look at their conviction rate, it is the highest in all the courts in this country, around 80% in terms of conviction.
That's true.
And also in terms of absorption and disposal of cases, they have a high disposal rate in a very short time compared to other courts. So they are doing their job quite well. So the question now we need to ask, if the judiciary is doing its work, IGC is doing work, now where is the problem? I think that's the question that we need to ask. Where is the problem? Because all these other institutions, they operate within a context, and that context is Uganda. Once there is corruption spread throughout the context in the political system, because you see, in our country right now, there is a very, very close relationship between politics and corruption. Nobody can deny that. And once that relationship is there between politics and corruption, then all these other interventions can only massage the problem, but the problem won't go away.
But before I let you go, Agaba, maybe to help our listener to know the magnitude of corruption that we're talking about, we just leveled it to the disease of cancer. But cancer has stages, and with someone may not know the stage of corruption that we have reached. But going to cancer, there is stage 1, where it is localized as to small area and hasn't spread to the lymph of nodes. Stage 2, cancer has grown but has not spread. Stage 3, cancer has grown larger and has spread to the other issues. And stage 4, cancer has spread to all the organs and the entire body is affected. Which stage are we in as far as corruption is concerned?
We are at stage 4, and if we are not very careful, we are now going towards death. Because why, let me try to justify that. Like I said that in my introduction, that corruption has spread everywhere. When you ask, like, where is the moral authority in this country? Even the religious institutions, even the cultural institutions, even the NGOs, even the media, besides government, corruption is everywhere. People have that thinking that once you have an office, that it is your right really to earn from it. Right. And it has reached a level where it is actually right now it is a development challenge to our country. Because if you're losing money, let me just give you 2 or 3 examples. If you're losing money as a country, one, we are extremely indebted as a country. And we have loans we shall pay, and our children will pay, and grandchildren will pay. And most of that money has gone into corruption because the projects we are doing are highly inflated, but also we have acquired loans that are sitting idle, and we have acquired loans and money is being misused. That is a very, very big problem.
All right. Habibu, you have heard from Anti-Corruption Coalition that we no longer have national values. We don't have the moral authority to judge who and who. Every institution is sick because the cancer of corruption has spread to all organs of government, private, even has reached our home. The other day, I was passing by a school and I saw kids' poster There are posters. P1, you are at NASA, you want a poster because you are in for a class monitor. Parents are giving their sweets to kids. 3 years kid, 4 years, 5 years. What are you trying to plant in this child? Equal opportunities. Do we still have values as a country? What are some of the challenges that we have raised and we need to tackle as a country together in order to fight this? Not judging or blaming IGG and many other institutions that we may name.
Thank you so
Habib?
much. You see, when we look at our country, first of all, we should commend President Museveni for all the guidance that he has given this country and for all the will that he has in fight against corruption. It is not true what my colleague said that the president is not interested in fighting corruption. Is really so much interested. And president alone will not fight corruption. It is us working with government, non-state actors, civil society organizations that will come and say no to this vice. And some of the challenges that I think we have, in my opinion, is that most of our people lack ideological orientation. When I am to ask, when you look at the army, this is a disciplined group and they are getting less salaries, but they are not corrupt. What would be the cause? I think they were ideally oriented well within their training. So that is why I say, and I would even propose, that almost all the civil service servants should go to these trainings so that we can love our country. We get to know that what is best for us as a country, and our mindset possibly shall be leveled, and we shall all come to fight corruption. When you're talking about other sectors fighting corruption other than the IGG not being at the forefront, that is not true. When someone is in Kosase, let's say, for instance, this other case where Joel Sonyon is interrogating some members of government over corruption-related matters, it is a 1 or 2 cases, but because it has gotten a public limelight and all cameras are there, they say this one is doing a lot of work. But IGG is investigating more than 6,000 cases on a very unlimited budget, on a budget deficit. And this is a national outlook for the IGG. Therefore, I think we should commend the IGG's work and support her and support the institution so that we are able to work together.
With about 0.2% recovery compared to 20 or 10 trillion.
Yes, but
when we have lost.
But at the when you look in the in the past years, even
we are
that was
recovering
not
nothing.
recovered. Yes, so we're not going to recover the 10 trillion at a go, because nowadays corruption is sophisticated.
But with an institution that is established by the Constitution and about 1988, if I'm not mistaken, and later revived in 1995, do we still have this to celebrate 0.2% recovery, or we should have gone very far compared to the time it has been in existence?
You know, corruption is nowadays modern. Tracking corruption, actually you might use more money to track than to recover because of modern technology. It's not the give and take like it used to be. So,
Mr. Habibu, before we look at the modernity of corruption and the strategies that we need to empower, what is this that we can do to make sure that everyone hates to take the public fund? That it is a scarecrow. When you see this money, you know that you have finished.
You know what needs to be done is the legal framework that has been done, and it's just need to
but
be
we have the legal implementation.
We have the legal framework.
Have good laws. I must
We have
that.
the Penal Code, we have the IGG's Act, we have the Whistleblowers Act, we have the PPDA Act, we have so many acts in regards to fighting corruption. But some of these are not fully implemented. And the challenges of this is, it is funding most of them. How is the IGG going to track the 6,000 cases with less than 50 officers at the headquarters? It all comes back to funding. We have the cases, for instance, in Equal Opportunities Commission, we have about 2,000 cases. And you know, corruption normally affects the vulnerable people, the vulnerable group. When someone eats a road, then the vulnerable people are the ones affected, who would have used that road to take their merchandise to get some money or in markets. So the vice is, we together as a team, if we realize that at least because these when you fund these anti-corruption groups, the Judiciary, the IGG, the PPDA, and they are all doing their work properly, and they are all fully capacitated in terms of human resource, then we can reduce the vice.
All right.
I have a point of correction.
Please, in seconds.
Yes. My comrade from the Equal Opportunities Commission attempted to put his word into my mouth. I can't convince myself that I said the president is not interested in fighting corruption. That is his word. What I said, the president has set up a team to fight corruption. He is a chief fighter against corruption. I compared his opinion on the efforts of the IGG as equivalent to lighting fire and pouring cold water onto it. What does that mean? That's the big question.
All right.
And I think the president is better placed to answer this question. We may be guessing his opinion.
All right.
But he said go slow on my investors, on my people.
In your opinion, are you saying that we are not condoning sin, but rather promoting it?
You see, this may be interpreted differently by different people. Let me ask you a question.
Please.
If you light fire for a purpose, you turn your back, pick a bucket of water, pour into it. What is the intention of lighting the fire? I'll be able to answer me that question. I would be happy.
I may not have the answer for that. All right. This is UBC Ground Zero, broadcasting live on 98 FM, UBC Red. We're also live and clear on UBC Butebo, UBC Western Nile, and Magic 100 FM. We're streaming live on YouTube. You can just enter UBC Ground Zero. We also raise live on Twitter, UBC Radio, on Facebook, UBC Radio, and our studio line is 776-511-426. Allow me go for a very, very short break, and when I return, I'm opening my line. You're going to call and share your opinion and ask anyone in the studios of UBC what needs to be done in order to fight corruption in this country that has watered down all the gains that we have realized as a country. UBC Ground Zero takes a very short break. I pray that you don't go away.
This is Ground Zero Season 2. Stay tuned. We shall be right back.
Tune in to Ground Zero on UBC Radio. We discuss politics.
The money we collect as taxes in the country, we lose it in corruption.
Economics.
The four economic sectors where their jobs and wealth are: commercial agriculture, industries, services, and ICT.
Education.
The classes which will not need an abridged curriculum are the entry-level classes of P1, Senior 1, and Senior 5.
Culture and religion. And other areas of human interest. Ground Zero every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on UBC Radio. Don't miss.
Something for nothing.
Zero Season 2 continues.
Welcome back from that very short break. This is UBC Ground Zero, broadcasting live on 98 FM, UBC Red. We're also live and clear on our sister radio stations, UBC Butebo, UBC Western Island, Magic 100 FM. We're also streaming live on YouTube. Welcome back from that very break. I played a little of the song by Thomas Mapono from Zimbabwe, the Lion of Zimbabwe, also known as Makunya. Corruption in the society. Corruption in the society, played by Thomas Mapono, the Lion of Zimbabwe. Nothing for nothing. Everything for something. I've opened my lines. 776511426 is the number that you can call and share your opinions about what you think we need to do as Uganda to fight corruption. 776511426 is the number you can call. UBC.
Hello.
Hello.
You are talking to Opondo Kennedy from Kitintale.
Opondo Kennedy.
Yes, sir.
Your concern, sir?
Actually, mine is the way the last question, which was given by a certain man to a friend Opono there, is actually that's not correct. Reason being, now you see those people, they are even eating our money via corrections. For instance, let me take the nearest example is the money for PDM here. Some were taken to be given out to people, and then actually the big people decided to take that money away and use it. Then they were caught. Then later on, instead of chasing them away from the work automatically, just keep them for some time, then they transfer them. That's why what they are doing is not good. If someone is caught, just chase him away. You leave the job forever, so that the corruption can stop. But if they are still doing it like that, when this one is caught this way, you remove him from there, and then you go and hide him somewhere. Corruption will not be there.
All right.
If the president himself makes that mistake. Thank you.
Most welcome, sir. Views of Opondo Kennedy from Chintare. 776511426 is the number that you can call and share your opinions, and you talk to the people in the studios of UBC. I have Dr. Patricia Ochiria, the Deputy Inspector General of Government. Maron Agaba is from Anti-Corruption Coalition. UBC.
Yes, hello. Very good morning to you, Mr. Moderator, and the invited guest.
A very good morning to you.
This is Flavia calling in from Naguru.
Most welcome, please.
Yeah. Allow me to greet all the listeners out there of UBC.
They're listening.
When we talk about corruption in the country, like seriously, I really don't want anyone to lie Ugandans that we are going to fight corruption up to the zero level. That won't happen. Whatever they are doing, it's only kind of like reducing the level. But then, let me tell you, it's only you and I who can one time change our heart to no to bribes. That will be the one who will fight in corruption. But to say that these methods, you arrest someone, like just the previous caller saying, you arrest someone who has embezzled the government fund, and comfortably, this person is still walking. Then these days they don't even care, because they know if they arrest this person, he will still come back home. You have to deal with such people, terminate them. If it is now, like you can talk of the government sectors, about the private. There's nothing like this is minor, this is major. Any bribe is already corruption.
All right.
So to think that this country is born with corruption, there's no way we're going to eliminate it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Most welcome. You have only 1 minute to share your opinion on what you think needs to be done to end corruption in Uganda. 7. Hello.
Yes, I'm on.
Yes.
A very good to you and your guest.
Good morning to you.
Juma from Butebo.
Most welcome to UBC Ground Zero.
It is dissatisfaction when we are seeing 10 trillion annually being just going seemingly like that, and the IGP is just there at their comfortable offices.
You always pin me about corruption, and now I have relevant people to discuss this, to give you the answers actually. I have the IGG in the studios and other stakeholders.
Let IGG open the ears and listen to me. Right now, I'm beginning with the accountability. Then number 2, ethic of works, transfer of staff, financial indiscipline. Then again, currently we are running another partisan, becoming partisan. Government, they have all what it takes, but the wananchi, what they need is service delivery. How will you expect someone putting on yellow to go and serve the whole community? And you know, that community you are going, they are not only people who like yellow. All these colors you are seeing them representing in parliament, that is what the image of the community. Now when you go back to these offices, head of institutions have to be much responsible for this fighting of corruption. Yes, Juma is much aware about corruption is in the mosque, corruption is in the churches, corruption is up to home. But a parent knows how to deal with the corruption within the home. A parent knows. If today put 500 shillings here, tomorrow is not there, we'll gather family members who has picked that money when I put it there. But this one of government, I want to ask one question to IGG. How do you feel when one person dressing very smart in a suit, taking away a money and embezzle it, which meant to be service for the community, one person alone taking the money? And how do you feel only taking one person to Luzira or Chigo just because of 1 billion? And actually, to me, PDM is going to be the worst project we have never ever received via government.
Why, sir?
Yes, PDM is going to be the worst one because they have been singing about it so much. And before even it has started delivering what good impact it may bring in future, already and corruption has already stated on it. So I rather go by Nusaf, whereby we saw the oxen, we saw the agricultural crops which were distributed in some various parts of the countries. That one had worked, though.
All right, as you conclude on that, our time is fast spent, sir.
Thank you. Saying private sectors, they have to be given much room to play their own role within the private issues.
All right.
Government has already smuggled that.
Okay.
Due to time, let me give line to others. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Thank you for being part of UBC Ground Zero.
Alhamdulillah.
Those are the views of the people of Uganda raising their ideas and concerns about what needs to be done. UBC?
Hello.
Good UBC.
Yes, Senator Baguma, I'm getting you right and clear.
All right. Most welcome to UBC Ground Zero, sir.
Okay, my concern with the issue of corruption, I think we need to localize it. Because this thing, the word itself is very, very colonial. And when you talk about corruption in Uganda, it's normal. People want to, because someone steals money, he builds a house, people say, oh, you're Mugaga. When you don't take anything from a big company, they think you are this is nothing. So I think my view is that we need to localize it. Certainly the word corruption should be changed to thieving or stealing. Why if you tell people that's the thief, everybody will follow you up. You see, but the corrupt people, ordinary people don't bother with the corrupt people at all. But with the thieves, they all up in arms.
All right.
Finally, the point of arresting corrupt people, I think also is no point. Does not make sense. You arrest a man, he has stolen 100 million shillings, he puts his house, he's in prison for 5 years. When he comes back, his house is still making money. My view is people who are said to be corrupt, provided it is proved that they have really stolen the money, they should now, the government should recover their assets and turn them into public assets. If he has built a hotel, let the hotel become a public hotel and government hotel, that's all. And don't arrest him at all. Just leave him go. Take over his house. Maybe you can cost it and give him the balance of that house. That makes sense. You have built a house for government. Thank you very much. That's my contribution.
Thank you, sir, for being part of UBC Ground Zero and for your concerns. Ground Zero. UBC. Yes, sir. You're live and clear.
This is Wire from Namaingo.
Your concern, sir?
I'll talk in Uganda.
If you could maintain English, it would help us, sir.
my concern about corruption,
Mm.
the way I see Uganda, by the way, we always said that a fish begins to rot from the head. So corruption is not from, we can't fight corruption when the top leaders are the most corrupted people. So we just say that let's, as Ugandans, come together and say and fight for corruption. But when we say that the one who
We've lost the caller 776-511-426. Let me get one more last. If time allows, we are going to get another bunch of callers later on. UBC Ground Zero.
Hello, UBC Ground Zero. This is Hudson Ngotowa from Ubulambuli.
Godson?
Hudson Ngotowa from Ubulambuli.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you for hosting those very informed brains, my dear.
Thank you, sir.
Straight to the point, I want to answer the question of the other colleague who said when you light fire and you again pour water, it means you are pretending that you want fire. However, in this regard of corruption, he has been comparing oranges to mangoes. What is happening in Uganda is there is really a will of fighting corruption. But the people are not helping Ugandans, we ourselves, because we know who are the corrupt. So unless me and you, we wake up and say, Madam IGG, you are in the office in Kampala, but you see here, then she will help us. I appreciate Mzee for appointing that Dr. Patricia in that office. She's doing a lot of work, but just because we don't know. But she's biting very slowly, and things are going the right direction. I appeal to the public, let us help IGG, let us help everybody who is willing to fight corruption by availing information. I thank you so much for that program.
We thank you too for being part of us.
Asante sana.
Most welcome. Time is really taking us, so first allow me stop the callers for now. If time allows, we're going to have more 2 or 3 callers later on, but allow me go to the studios of UBC to answer some of the Ugandan concerns as you've heard from the callers. Let me start with you, IGG. We are comparing mangoes to oranges. How true is that? We are pretending that we are fighting corruption when we are pouring water to the same fire that we lit. Where is this taking us? In seconds, all of you, you may answer the concerns or talk to Ugandans about what they have raised. IGG.
Thank you very much, Amon. I'll touch on some of the observations and questions raised. First of all, I'll begin with the last one, where Hudson from Blambuli is saying, pretending on fire, if somebody lights fire and pours water on it. And he clearly says there is a will in fighting corruption. I agree with him when he says there is a will. Indeed, there is a will, just like you saw the president launch the lifestyle audit. He launched it and is supporting it. When we talk about political and technical leaders, we said everybody has got responsibility in fighting corruption. And Flavia says we can't reduce the levels of corruption. We can't say reduce it to zero. We can just reduce it a little bit. When you look at the work of the IG now, we make recommendations. I told you about a leadership code tribunal, which is dealing with some of those issues Juma brought from Busoga. He says we should deal with accountability, ethics of work, financial indiscipline, and so on. The tribunal makes its decisions to demote, to terminate, or dismiss someone from work. Then the Anti-Corruption Act is quite clear. Once someone is convicted with any of the offenses of corruption, that person should not hold a public office for 10 years. 10 years once someone is convicted. What is happening now, people go for plea bargain. When they see that the case is pinning them, they say, well, it is true, I accept I'm guilty and I'm ready to pay. So we said, well, if somebody is ready to pay, it is provided for within the law. Plea bargain is acceptable. Let the person go ahead and pay. And we don't receive only one.
Is it plea bargain, Madam IGG, or brave bargain?
It is plea bargain where we have out of court settlements.
No, they don't bribe again.
No, they don't. If you know of any case of bribery, please report to us and we deal with it as well. So thank you very much, Juma, for raising those concerns. And you also say, how do we feel when a smart person takes money and is taken away to prison and only that one person? Well, we would be happy for you to report others. We don't just handle people with kids' gloves. We actually do investigate and prosecute those cases. Okay. But what am I saying? Everybody has got responsibility. Political and technical leaders are supposed to provide technical oversight work, enhance internal grievance handling mechanisms and supervisions, contribute towards awareness, enforcement, and compliance with the laws. We are supposed to establish effective policies and systems that eliminate corruption and maladministration so that everybody hates and shuns corruption. The community, we are saying the community should be able to demand continuously for accountability. And you cannot demand when you're not informed. The community needs to be empowered with knowledge, with skills on how they can do this, and with information, because they're the ones who monitor and inspect. They're the ones who elect the leaders who are corrupt or not corrupt. So the community is a serious determinant. So we need to instill ethical values right from the household level and promote ethical values even in churches, using the religious leaders, and create awareness even on the evils of corruption. Targeting the youth must be emphasized because the youth, like we said, are our future leaders. Someone said we have parallel institutions. We believe in complementarity. That is why we have the Interagency Forum in the fight against corruption, comprising of the IG, Ethics and Integrity, DPP, OAG, Financial Intelligence Authority, and others. Then we now have the State House Anti-Corruption Unit. We have other stakeholders like the civil society, the Anti-Corruption Coalition, and others. Because the fight against corruption needs a holistic approach and not just to do mandate grabbing or stepping on one another's toes. We all complement the work of each other. That is why when State House Anti-Corruption investigates, they bring the matter to us to prosecute.
Madam IGG, the institutions you're telling us about, all the other organs, those that we call para institutions, we see performing much better than you. Is it that true?
It is not true. I've told you about complementarity, and I was giving you an example that the State House Anti-Corruption Unit investigates and brings the files to us to prosecute. So what is that? Isn't it complementarity?
But we have seen them arrest individuals without coming to you.
Well, we have got a law in place. We have got the Constitution and the IG Act, which prescribes the methods we should do our work. We don't just arrest on basis of rumors. We need information which can be qualified and proven. And we need cases that are prosecutable, not just rumors. You know, corruption is very, very covert. And it's like an amoeba. It changes forms and faces anytime. So if you bring a matter to the IG, we will not quickly rush to investigate. We do our covert investigations before we arrest that person. When we are ready to take the matter to court, then our file is 95% ready or 100%, then we proceed to court. Because government is losing a lot of money on this kind of arrests, where you arrest, there is no information, no evidence, and this person turns around and sues government. So would we be doing a service to government by just swinging into arrests? We want information that is qualified, cases that are prosecutable, that we can take to court and say yes, where someone has got evidence that actually corruption has occurred, and we can say, well, can the person pay back? Can the person make good? And we use that as a basis even to dismiss the person when we come up with our decisions. So Henry Baguma says, let's localize corruption. I agree with him entirely. We need to localize corruption and take it down to the grassroots. Take it down to the grassroots. He says people can be arrested and then corrupt people come back to enjoy the proceeds of corruption. We now have a law called the Conviction-Based Asset Recovery, which is in the offing. This law, the spirit behind this law is to ensure that we arrest, deal with the person and deal with the property also, so that the person does not come out of prison to enjoy the proceeds of corruption. The law is being fast-tracked, and soon we'll be presenting it as a bill as well. Bwire from Namaingo says a fish rots from the head. True. Top leaders must be dealt with.
By
and that
who?
is why in our lifestyle audit,
Top
we
leaders
have
by
sampled
who?
top leaders of institutions, of ministries, of agencies.
Who should deal with them, Madam IGG?
The Anti-Corruption Lead Agency, which is the Inspectorate of Government of Uganda. And that is why in our
Are there
lifestyle
some
audit,
cases? Are there some cases, corruption cases that
why
are
don't you give me a chance
that are
Amo,
beyond
to
you?
explain myself? There are no cases that are beyond us because the law is quite clear. We have a mandate.
The CEOs
We're
of these
empowered.
countries are being prostituted by the institutions which are lower than you, and one may think that you don't have that net to fish those big fish.
Can you give me an example?
You have the time, madam.
Well, I was telling you that we are dealing with top leaders, and if you look at our lifestyle audit, which Ms. Ofono talked about a short while ago, we have identified and published names of accounting officers of 150 government votes with the biggest budgets, and we are verifying them within our leadership code directorate, and this includes all permanent secretaries, CEOs of public institutions with the biggest budgets, local governments with the biggest budgets, 35 officials, top officials of the IG, including ourselves, because we believe in leadership by example. We have already written to ministries of lands, housing, urban development, Uganda Revenue Authority, and we are basically doing verifications of assets. We want to strengthen the whistleblower motivation. That is why when a whistleblower brings a case to us, 5% of whatever is recovered goes to the whistleblower.
Right.
And then we want to continue more aggressive lobbying for funding, because when we get funding, we are then empowered to move, swing into action, and do our work. So we have those strategies. All we are saying is that we would like the citizens to rally behind us to fight corruption, because every citizen has a responsibility within Article 17 of the Constitution to protect and preserve public property and combat corruption. So every citizen should rally behind us. And like Hudson said, they should come out and report these cases. Because like you saw in the survey we conducted, we lose 10 trillion. And just to correct the record, we are not only recovering 10 billion annually. 10 billion could be recovered in a month. If you look at our reports and the details, if I'm getting 4.5 in one case and 9 from another case and 13 from another case, it adds up. So if in a month I'm able to do 6 of those successful cases, then how much is that? We are not only doing 1%, just to correct the record, we are recovering much more, and whatever goes to the Asset Recovery Fund of the IG goes to the Consolidated Fund, which contributes to the improvement of service delivery in this country. Thank you very much.
Most welcome. Allow me to give other seconds to the guests, starting with Mzee Fono. Concerns of the listeners, especially those that Madam IGG did not tackle.
Let me give you this scenario.
Please.
I've been a student of the President of the Republic of Uganda, His Excellency Museveni, since 1986. There was an event that brought me under the same roof with the President. In the early 90s, I was a student studying advanced level at Col SS. The President convened a meeting of students studying at advanced level at Lugogo Indoor Stadium. He came with the two things. One, he came with a new bicycle. Two, he came with one question. The bicycle was meant for a student who would handle the question. This was an economic question. This is what he told us. Assuming I have 10 households, I have one producer of bicycles. The producer of bicycles produces one bicycle per year. What mechanisms shall I have in place to ensure that the producer of the bicycle remains in production? I must confess, none of us attempted that question, and he went with the bicycle. But this is what he meant. 10 households, a bicycle is produced per year. The bicycle breaks down in 10 years. It was a simple logic. Forceful 1, 2, 3. The 11th year meant that bicycles have been broken, spare parts are required, and the first household requires a new bicycle. What did he mean? There are aspects of sustainability in what that is a scenario I will never forget in my interaction with the President of the Republic of Uganda. Now, this one brings me to a question, and probably the drawing table. What sustainability strategies and mechanisms do we have in place, particularly among duty bearers, to fight against corruption in this country? This question may not be mine, but I ably think the Inspector General of Government present in the House has some insights in this matter. I beg to submit.
Interesting. And corruption coalition. Before I went for the when I was in the break, I played a song by Thomas Mafono. Corruption is eating up society. Nothing for nothing, everything for something. Was referring to Zimbabwean society. But the same song applies to Uganda. This is not a musical or an entertainment program, but anything that has information that educates and informs the public, we tend to utilize it. That's why I played it. Concerns of the Ugandans from that song and from the discussion that we've had, where are we going? When the Transparency International released their report of recent past, which is a global coalition against corruption, ranks Uganda among the top most corrupt countries in the world. Where does this leave the image and the reputation of Uganda as a country?
Okay, thanks very much. I'll just give a few examples. By the way, it is possible to get services in this country without paying a bribe. I made a resolution not to pay bribes. And at my small house I've been constructing, I started with electricity. I said, no, I will not pay for electricity. I suffered.
And how long did it take?
I suffered. It took me close to 6 months to get a connection. And even when the people finally came and connected, they virtually refused to vacate my home without giving them money, irrespective of the fact that I had paid for everything, but I refused. It took me 6 months. Recently, I also did the same. I have
someone who has spent 2 years and up to now is still awake.
Recently, I did the same for water. I applied for water. I said no, because part of the process is online. I applied, I went there, I paid, everything was online. I refused to pay the money.
Maybe you had an option.
Let me first finish the example. So I spent, I think, close to 3 months. Work stored, everything. I said no, I will not pay this money. But eventually, they came and connected. Actually, I was at work, and even my wife was calling me that this one has finished working. He's refusing to forget our compound. Said, what's the issue that the person wants to run? I said, no, I don't want to give money. So he stayed there, refused to go. After some time, he went. So it is possible to get service, even whether it is a passport, and you apply where ahead of line or driving permit, you can get the service, but with a lot of pain. So it is possible. That's where bringing in the issue of citizens saying no is very important. Because the problem is that we can solve some of these problems by doing two things. One is digitalizing some of these services. They are giving examples. When you go in other countries, like for instance in Rwanda, they're giving some countries in Asia, people have gone online. There is no cash. Services are online. You can apply for whatever service you want and get it online. So when you remove that kind of human interaction, it reduces the incidences of corruption. But also too, let's streamline the processes. If I apply, for instance, for a renewal of a permit, my driving license, and it is clear when you apply today, you apply online, it will take you 1 day for your to be assessed, then you pay and you go and pick the passport. It reduces most of the corruption. And I think government really should put much emphasis in the e-government, because that will go a long way in terms of in terms of reducing this petty corruption. Coming back to the whole issue of asset verification. Asset verification for us in civil society have been advocating for making this information public. Because the best person who can verify these assets is the citizen. They know what these leaders own. You go to a district, I'm not mentioning this, but you go to a district, you find a principal something earning a salary of around 1.82 million, owning a hotel of 5 billion. They have hotels of 10 billion that they couldn't have acquired. But IGG, first of all, the IGG will spend a lot of money verifying these assets. I read one of the reports of the IGG. I think they had spent around 39 billion to verify assets worth 40 billion in one of the biannual reports of the Inspectorate of Government. And it's quite a lot of money. So if you could make this information available to the public. On the issue of whistleblowers, Madam IGG, there is a problem there. That 5% is not working. And by the way, I can ask even just for 5 people who have benefited from that 5%, they are not there. The only agency that has tried to pay people who bring information, I think, is URA. It has been doing that. But the one in the Whistleblowers Protection Act is not working. That is number one. Number two, the protection of whistleblowers is weak. We have had instances, people report, their identities are released to the people they have reported, they face reprisals, and in some cases they're even jailed. Because they are syndicates. You report a person who is in a syndicate. You go in a district, the resident state attorney, the magistrate, and the CID police, they are one. They are working together. You report anything against them, in the morning you will be arrested, and by 2 you are on remand. It's a syndicate, and people we have really suffered with protecting people who give us information. And again, the Whistleblowers Protection Act now should extend to witness protection. We need a law on witness protection. That when people go to court and they give evidence, the Whistleblowers Protection Act doesn't protect them. When they go back in public, they face a lot of reprisals. Then the other point I wanted to make, if you allow me, was a point of red flags. Madam Patricia talked about red flags. Most of the corruption we are addressing right now, we do post-mortem. I'll give an example. We're in one of the districts. The human resource and cow and a few people connived and paid the overpaid staff. A teacher is supposed to receive 1 million, they're paid 10 million. One is supposed to receive 500, they're paid 15 million. And then after making those payments, they would call them to bring the money in cash form. And this happened for 2 quarters in a financial year. And over 2 billion was lost in that scam. These people have been arrested. But even when you interact with people, these people are going to win the case. One, there is no evidence of them receiving the money because the money was wired to accounts of teachers. And then for them, they went and received the money back. But if we had red flags that can tell you there is a problem here before the problem happens, I think that would help us as a country than waiting for when the problem has happened and then you come in. In terms of the image and reputation of corruption, I was in a certain European country recently, and we interacted with that is Denmark, and we interacted with the Danish industries consortium of industries, and they were showing the number of Danish industries that had established businesses in Uganda. They were quite few, and they were identifying corruption as a key impediment to doing business in Uganda. And that if businesses are to come here and do business, they have to budget for corruption, which makes the cost of doing business high. Now, if you have the kind of perception this among investors in Europe about our country, if this corruption perception index is showing corruption as being high and as a problem, it affects our image as a country, it affects our reputation as a country, and it even becomes extremely hard to attract investors to come and invest here.
Equal opportunities. Your concerns from the Ugandans, but also you heard from Magaba that everything needs to be restructured. What structure do you recommend Ugandans and the institutions that you work with to make sure that we step down corruption?
No, thank you so much, Amon.
As time bad, we may use some seconds.
Be very brief. My concluding remarks. I'd like to.
Now I'll give you time to conclude.
Yeah, I'd like to thank I'd like to thank this government because there is a will to fight corruption. At least that one is on record, that there is a will, and a strong will. However, in the course of fighting corruption, of course there are challenges. People withhold service delivery, they take longer time so that they are given some monies and all that. But our people should really come up and report these cases, because most of the cases of corruption in this country are not reported. And that is because, one, possibly they have lost interest in fighting corruption. Two, possibly they believe possibly they will, when they report, nothing will be done. But we like to assure Ugandans that give a chance the new leadership under the IG to also see what they can do. At least my brother here, Agaba, has said, has really commended the new team. And working together, as the IGG said, with the various organizations and government agencies, I believe that as government we shall achieve. We may not fight corruption to zero levels, but at least we shall achieve something.
Now your minute to conclude. But as you conclude, Transparency International also in this report of this year, is it this year, they said that the institutions in Uganda that are leading in corruption is police, the judiciary, and the tax services. Where shall Ugandans run when the police is on top and the judiciary?
That is very unfortunate to have such entities being earmarked as corrupt institutions, but I don't think everyone there is corrupt. Of course, generally, we make general statements about our entities, which I think sometimes become unfair. But all in all is let us unite together as Ugandans. Let us see if there is a wrong, we report a wrong. Let us also love our country. Let us know that beyond ourselves, there are other generations to come, and they should also live in a better Uganda.
Interesting. Mzee Fona Charles, you have 1 minute to give your way forward.
I am humbled once again, Comrade Amon. I'm attempted to be educated whether the IGG and the Auditor General have got interest in finding why supplementary budgets have become too frequent in this country. Circumstances under which they are raised have raised the public interest. Any serious planner would not accept this kind of supplementary budgets. And I don't see any harm at the government department once and for all draw a substantial budget for its running. I would wish to hear a note from the IGG.
Okay.
Then I have this issue. There is this question of, if you investigate corruption cases, much of these funds go to purchase of lands and houses. I am wondering whether the IGG and the Auditor General are authorized within the law to investigate who is the recipient of a land transaction, and as this transaction tally with the one's level of income. That would be one area of interest that I would tip the IGG to make comments on. Then lastly, as I made reference to the President and the question of sustainability, can we have a drawing table design a sustainability strategy to fight corruption in this country? I say this for God and my country.
Interesting. Allow me engage Agaba as you give your way forward. People are scared to fight corruption. They say fighting corruption and corruption fight is so dangerous, but we say it is necessary. Assure the people of Uganda that we need to engage all ourselves to have this necessary, but not get scared of it as we think it is dangerous. You have 1 minute, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to talk about the aspect of political will. Just briefly in 10 seconds. I think one, where we have really, the will is there, but I will say that the will is limited depending on the case. There are some cases where the will is not there. And the level of impunity in this country is very high. There are people who are untouchable. And I think the former IGG said it quite well, that thieves in this country are quite powerful, and there's where they run and hide. But I will not go into that for now. But you have seen where, as a country, there has been a will, we have fought, and we have won. Most recently, during COVID, Uganda did quite well at fighting COVID-19. And we lost very, very few people because the will was there in terms of words being spoken and actions. Even the war on HIV, even the civil wars we have had, we have fought as a country and we have won under the leadership of our president. Why are we losing the war against corruption? I think that's a question that we need to what?
Okay.
We need to answer. But finally, as I conclude, Uganda is our country. It is for us all. The short times I've been abroad, you are there, the coldness, the winter, and the people, you feel that I am homesick, I want to be back home. Uganda is our country. Let us not talk about patriotism in terms of talking, but let us be patriotic. Each and every citizen in your own, whether office or garden or where, you can say no to corruption, and you say no, and you will say no, and you will get that service. I think corruption really, it should be a responsibility of each and everyone.
Okay.
In our different capacities, let us say no, and that will make a difference.
All right. Thank you, Agaba, and Corruption Coalition. Madam IGG.
Thank you very much, Amon, and thank you very much, listeners and my colleagues here in the studio. I think, Amon, this is not a time for us to go into lamentations. Ugandans, we need to be very, very objective about this whole thing of fighting corruption.
Sure.
You see, when you're going for war, you have to understand your enemy. When you go for battle, you have to scope the enemy. You have to know the tactics the enemy has. And the enemy we are talking about here is corruption. In the IG, we believe that we are going to make very, very positive impact. We have just covered 1 year, like I said, and we started by giving corruption a face. Giving corruption a face, just like we did for HIV, AIDS, and COVID recently. Because in order to effectively fight, we have to define and describe the enemy very, very well. The easiest way is for the grassroots population to recognize corruption through acquisition of illicit wealth by the public, by the people, through the lifestyles that are not commensurate with the public officers' known sources of income, through that top high expensive vehicle someone buys, which is not commensurate to his salary or incomes, through that mansion or those houses or apartments, those expensive schools people take their children to, through those family holidays. That are all indicators of illicit wealth. So when we do the lifestyle audit, our eyes are looking out for some of this. And like my friend Ofono said, the supplementary, what is the need? Supplementary budgets are legal procedures which happen in Parliament through the Supplementary Appropriation Act, and they're normally out to help deal with emergency situations like when we had COVID, or unfunded priorities in government ministries, departments and agencies, emergencies like locusts, like diseases coming out and so on. So that is basically a legal process which happens in Parliament, which we cannot begin questioning. But we can only question if it is given and abused, like you saw the case of the locusts, which we are also dealing with in the Inspectorate of Government, even the COVID funds recently, and several others which we cannot discuss here and finish. As I conclude, I think it is very, very important for citizens out there to join us and rally behind us in the fight against corruption. Because, like I said, it's a fight that is not only for the Inspectorate of Government. We need other institutions, agencies, civil societies, NGOs, and everybody else. And like Habib said, we all need to be patriotic for the good of this country. We need to protect our country's resources. We need to promote and protect what we believe in, that like values for this country. And everybody should come. Wherever you see a case to do with corruption, please feel free to report to our offices and we will investigate and handle appropriately. Otherwise, thank you very much, listeners, for joining in, for tuning in, and thank you very much, colleagues in studio, and thank you very much to our moderator for handling the programs here in very well. For God and my country, may God bless you all. Thank you.
You're most welcome, Madam IGG, and that marks us the end of UBC Ground Zero this edition. We've been broadcasting live on UBC Red, UBC Butebo, UBC Western Nile FM, and Majikwa 900 FM. We're also live on YouTube. You can always follow us on YouTube and get to this edition in case you missed the entire program. And the repeat of this program is always on Sunday, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. You've heard from the Deputy IGG that this is a war, and she calls every Ugandan to play their part as they also play their part. This is not a blame game, but a corrective effort. Time did not really allow me to get all of your calls. I pray that next time in the next edition we have the time to get your calls. We need to keep this real talk on, and we need to keep the fight on, in that it may not keep lowering down and watering down our national gains as we celebrate the 60th independence. I call upon every Ugandan to do what you can in order to expose that thief who is killing the people of Uganda by mismanaging the public funds and other resources. I worked with a strong team, Bonnie Chenwin, Bob Brian Mugisha, Hilary Katurebe, and many thanks to our executive producers, Madame Doreen Daisy and Madame Cimenta Allen. From all of us at UBC, wish you all the best and great preparations for the 60th independence. We keep the series Uganda at 60. Until next program, we come with another topic. I want to thank my guests for sparing time to talk to the people of Uganda on UBC Ground Zero. Thank you, Madam IGG, Dr. Patricia Achan Ochiria, Deputy IGG. Thank you, Maron Agawa, Executive Director and Corruption Coalition Uganda. And thank you, Mzee Fono Charles, Executive Chairman, Foundation for Rural Housing. Great thanks to Selwanji Habib, member of Equal Opportunities. Ampere Amon of Tegar is my name. Allow me leave you for other programs running on UBC radios and other presenters. For God and my country, Ampere Amon of Tegar, allow me to sign out.
That was Ground Zero Season 2, a production of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Tune in to Ground Zero on UBC Radio. We discuss politics.
The money we collect as taxes in the country, we lose it in corruption.
Economics.
The 4 economic sectors where their jobs and wealth are: commercial agriculture, industries, services, and ICT.
Education.
The classes which will not need an abridged curriculum are the entry-level classes of
Nothing